All right, guys, what is going on? If you're watching this, you stumbled upon some extra content here from the Worship Center. I'm sitting here with Justin Crispin, our lead pastor, and we thought it would be kind of fun if we just had a conversation about the message that you just taught us, and go a little bit deeper. And that's what we're kind of talking about. So we're going deeper, but maybe helping us understand some stuff from a different perspective, getting to know the content behind it and how you came up or how you thought about this. The series that we just started is called Out of the Shallows, and I loved that opener video. I think it says everything about the series: jumping off, going deep, and he was intentional. He had to do it. But for you, you gave us these names. You said, was it curious, skeptic, the interested skeptic. It was the ambitious starter, the restless veteran, or the comfortable camper.
Right.
In your life, where would you say it started for you when you realized you needed to go deep? Like, was there a time where it clicked, where you went, there's more for me? Or is that just an ongoing season, an ongoing thing in your life,
right.
or what?
I think for me, I've probably at one point or another have been probably 3 of the 4. I don't know if I've ever been quite the interested skeptic, but I have been the ambitious starter, the restless veteran, and I've also been the content or the comfortable camper. I've kind of been in all 3 of those at different stages of my life, and fight off sometimes being that restless veteran or the comfortable camper sometimes, even today.
That's interesting. Now, do you find it, has someone come into your life before that said and challenged you, or has it always been an internal thing where you've always gone, I need to grow? Or is it somebody that comes alongside you and kind of...
Honestly, I don't think I've ever had someone in my life that called me on the carpet saying I need to grow. It's been kind of an internal drive. I've had different people's lives that kind of was convicting because they were growing, and I'm like, I want to grow like they are. So it's never been a like over the top where someone faced me and said, hey, Justin, you're slacking, you need to grow. It's more of, I really want to grow like they're growing. I've had great examples like that in my life. I've also had just read amazing books that have just caused me to want to grow in my faith, and even reading through the scriptures, try to feed that hunger for more of God.
That's awesome. I was kind of wondering, while you're preaching the message, and just even what you're saying now, not all of us are wired to just go, I think I want more. I think as humans we tend to be satisfied with where we're at. We're comfortable. It's like, I'm not messing up too bad. Why is it so hard to recognize spiritual immaturity in our lives, that we do need to grow, that there is areas that are immature, and maybe we're drinking the bottle like you were talking about a little bit? Why is that so hard?
Well, what a great question. I think oftentimes when there's spiritual immaturity, it leads us to places of comfort, and I think all of us kind of lean to that side of comfort. We don't. Growth happens when we're stretching ourselves. Growth happens when we're putting effort in, and growth happens when we're, like if you're an athlete, when you're putting time at the gym, when you're doing these things, you're putting those efforts in, you're growing. It's the natural tendency of everyone to go comfortable. And so honestly, the big red flags is if we're comfortable, we're in trouble in a sense. So I think it's hard to recognize spiritual immaturity, but I think the biggest red flag of spiritual immaturity is when you're comfortable. Because if you look at even disciples, they were constantly uncomfortable because Jesus was always stretching them. Yeah. And so maybe that's a great indicator of where if you're spiritually immature and if you're comfortable, it's because you're drinking from the bottle. If you're being stretched, you've probably been picking up the fork and feeding yourself.
And along those lines, just made me think, sometimes you're growing when you're going through the hardest seasons of your life and you don't even realize you're growing. And talking about, being comfortable, you're comfortable and that's fine, but then we go through those hard seasons and we're like, I don't want to deal with this. Like in life, somebody's sick or somebody's going through something, and really it's God's growing you the most in those. Would you agree with that? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a rhythm in the way God moves in our hearts and our lives. There's going to be peaks and there's going to be valleys. and you grow in both, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know some people say you never grow in the peaks, but I think there's times of peaks where there's refreshing, where you feel like you're just getting everything you can out of the scriptures. And then there's going to be times in your life where you're in the valleys, and in these valleys, God is still using those desert experiences where you don't feel like everything's easy, everything's really difficult, but it's even in the struggle that you grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thought, where it's not always going to feel great all the time. Your spiritual life is going to have these ups and downs, but in those desert times, God is actually growing you just like he was in the peaks, just in a different way.
That's awesome. You talked about red flags a little bit, like maybe comfortable is one. I know in my life, one of the red flags, and someone pointed this out to me. They said it's pride. Pride is like where where I start to think I'm good, like I'm spiritually good, and it's like I don't need to push. I'm doing this, and so I don't know. For me, I've had to kind of guard against that and going, no, there's always, and you even said it in your message, man, there's a God who wants to get to know you, and like there's so much more that you can learn about him, and so that's so exciting. You ended with this idea that you can either be self-fed, bottle-fed, or self-fed. And then you gave us this 28 days of deep.
Right.
Why is creating a habit so important in our spiritual lives? I mean, obviously habits are good, but when it comes to our spiritual life, I don't want it to just be a habit that I just do, but there's good things that come out. We'll talk about that a little bit. What comes out of that?
So you're asking me about the difference between the bottle fed and the self fed, and the importance of habit in that.
Yeah.
I've always been a huge proponent of just saying that if you want to change your life, you change the small things, the daily things, the habits, the habitual things. It's like these small little victories, these small little wins that lead to something better than that.
That's
and
good.
If you think about even a professional athlete, it's all about the practicing for the moments in the game, and it's preparing. It's what it's doing. It's behind the scenes.
Yeah.
The door's shut. You're reading the scriptures. You're praying to God. You're in the preparation for those moments where God calls you out in the middle of the day, when you have a conversation with someone. It's those moments we're training for.
All right. Well, man, that is so true. Being prepared. I mean, in any area of our lives,
Right.
we're preparing behind the scenes because we know that it's going to happen sometime in our lives, or at least we're prepared for it. So thank you so much for sitting down with me and letting me pick your brain on this message. I hope you're kind of excited for part 2 of Out of the Shallows, because I know I am. I'm looking forward to it. Have a great week, guys.